Hey everyone, I'm Katrina, and in this video, I'm giving you my favorite X-Men movies, starting from my least favorite to my most favorite. I was originally gonna do the Wolverine movies, but since and included technically is supposed to be part of the timeline, I was gonna originally include it in the list, but I decided not to because I hated every Wolverine movie except for Logan. I hated them. I thought they were terrible. I felt like all the writers should get flipped for even putting those abominations into the world. But Logan was amazing. Logan made me cry. I still have not watched it. I watched it one time in the movie theater with my mom, and I was crying at the end. I do have the DVD, but I have not opened it because I just can't watch him die because Logan's like he's my favorite X-Men. Like I get all good things have to come to an end and all, but like first of all, nobody asked you guys for all of this. Like, had me all in my feels. I was crying. I was emotional because they killed him off. So I decided not to include that because literally I don't like any of those movies but Logan. So I'm just gonna stick to all the X-Men movies. Anyway, my least favorite of the X-Men movies will have to be X-Men Dark Phoenix. I love the Dark Phoenix storyline in the comics. I loved it in the cartoon. I don't know what the hell was this abomination that they decided to put us. This is supposed to be the last of the new trilogy, and I say the new trilogy only because the younger cast. So even though it's all connected and they figured out how to connect it, and Days of Future Past technically erased what happened in X3 Last Stand, they could have done so much with Dark Phoenix, and maybe a part of it has to do with the fact that they cut off the second movie. But I was very disappointed with it. I felt like it was too soon, honestly, to do Dark Phoenix. I felt like they should have had one more before Dark Phoenix to get the justification of how powerful and how good that storyline was. So it's my least favorite one. I felt they could have done it better. And it bombed because they should be ashamed of themselves for messing up one of my favorite comic book storylines. But that's my least favorite. Next up is, I will have to say, X-Men Apocalypse. When we got the little teaser in the prior movie that he was coming, I was actually very excited for it because I liked Apocalypse. Not that I liked him, because Apocalypse was always somebody who was messing with the X-Men all the time and getting on my nerves. Like, he was always just like that pain in the ass, that thorn in your side who just won't go away. He was always just popping up like, surprise, guys, here I am to mess with you guys some more. So I was excited, like, oh, this gonna give them some problems. You know, James McAvoy, aka Professor X, new version, was supposed to do some shit. And then I was just like, oh, okay, this what we're doing with this. Like, I don't know. It just was like he's supposed to be the oldest mutant and supposed to be one of the most powerful mutants. And then this is what you guys do? Like, bro was doing all this for Professor X. Like, his mind powers, like, bro, Jean Grey is better than this. Like, Jean Grey has more powers than Professor X. Like, how, like, just, I'm sorry. I didn't understand the logic. I didn't understand, like, he got Magneto, and Magneto was just sitting there in the air, just doing this. I just need to move my hands closer so y'all can see this. He was just doing this, and then shit was just flying in the air, and I'm just like, so bro, you're not gonna, oh, okay. You got everybody else, the four horsemen, kicking ass, and you just in the air, letting shit float around you. And then they kind of dropped the ball with the storyline between him and, Quicksilver. He was supposed to be like his father or something, and then they just dropped the ball with giving me real like storyline with that. As a writer, I'm just like, okay, can y'all give me a little more? So I just, like, they should be ashamed of themselves for hurting my feelings with that, because I was really excited for Apocalypse and they just ruined it. So do better, if y'all decide to, God forbid, rewrap this some other way, because y'all just keep recycling things. Do better. Will be X-Men: The Last Stand, which was the third originally of the trilogy before they decided to add the other ones. Like, in this one, like, there was a cure to cure mutants, and Rogue kind of struggled with it. She wanted to be normal, and then Magneto pretty much like declared the war against people who were not mutants. There's all this stuff. But my issue with that, it was like they killed off Cyclops in that movie, and his death was very underwhelming, and I felt like he was supposed to be like the leader of the X-Men. You could have gave him a better death. If you're gonna kill him off, then make me feel. I didn't feel bad that he died because it was so underwhelming. That it was just like, oh, all right. And the whole thing with like Professor X was the reason why Jean Grey was like held hostage in her power, and I'm just like, he knew she was very powerful. Why would that be the reason? I think he would try to make sure she can get to a place where she can nurture her like really crazy ability. It didn't fit for me with Professor X. And granted, they kind of alluded that something similar with Mystique in the version with James McAvoy, and it was like he kind of told her and kind of tried to control her too. But I just felt it was weird because, by this point, Professor X was always trying to nurture people's like powers and stuff. Why would he not try to do the same for Jean Grey? It just didn't make sense to me, so I didn't like that. And then the whole thing with like her and Logan, and he had to kill her, and it was just like, even when he did that, I wasn't like, oh, I feel bad for you, Logan. I'm just like, oh, okay, well, I guess. And it could have been something really amazing because it was originally supposed to be the end of it, but it for me felt like really flat, very underwhelming, and I was just really upset with that. Like they could have just done a little better. Now I'm talking about X2. In X2, we pretty much get introduced to William Stryker, who pretty much attacked Professor X's mansion because he wanted to make his own version of Cerebral. We get introduced to Nightcrawler, who kind of starts off the movie. We get introduced to Pyro, who ends up joining Magneto in the movie. We get introduced to Colossus, even though his role is very small. And we get introduced to Deathstrike, who I happen to be a big fan of. And I was kind of annoyed that her role was reduced to being Stryker's like little sidekick lackey. I really didn't care about that. But either way, overall, the movie was very well written, especially for the time. Of all the X-Men movies, the storyline was probably one of the best storylines when you think of like continuity and as far as things making some kind of sense. That was probably my favorite. They also gave a little bit of alluding to what was going to happen in Last Stand with Jean Grey becoming Dark Phoenix or whatever. I still have my discrepancies about that because, the original storyline, it seems like no movie fully got that completely. But either way, with all that being said, I actually really enjoyed X2. It's probably why it's so high for me on my list. It's just because it was pretty good. And, considering the crap that they did with The Last Stand and even more what they did with, Apocalypse, this was like A1. So that's X-Men First Class was pretty good. I was very happy when I heard they were going to try to revamp it, and I wasn't really sure how I felt about James McAvoy originally playing Professor X, but he did a really good job. I actually was a really big fan of Havoc. I know that they kind of changed the age a bit with him and Scott Summers, aka Cyclops, later on, and they changed the ages of how they're supposed to be in the comics. But I actually really liked Havoc. I thought Kevin Bacon was a pretty good villain. Kevin Bacon's pretty solid actor, so he was a pretty good villain. I liked it. Magneto made me want to punch him in the face, because young Magneto was even more annoying than old Magneto. I just wanted to punch Michael Fassbender in the face because his just attitude was getting mad. I'm like, listen, bro, it's not about you all the time with your drama and go to therapy or something. You need a therapist. That's all it was. You need a therapist. But that was a really, really good, like, nice reintroduction to the younger cast. Now I'm talking about X-Men, the movie that started it all. When I found out X-Men was coming out, I was extremely happy. I was very young at the time. I think they came out in 2000, so not to show my age, but I was young. Okay, I was young when that movie came out, and I was so hyped because X-Men is one of my favorite comic book groups of all time. I will tell anybody, like, I love Marvel, like, I love Spider-Man, but X-Men just do something to me, and Wolverine is my favorite, so I was so happy that we got, we was getting X-Men. So while the story wasn't, like, the most deepest story, we get introduced to, all the X-Men, Cyclops, Storm, Professor X, Jean Grey, and what the main story was pretty much Rogue and Logan pretty much trying to find a space, so find a place. And the X-Men, which I thought was really freaking dope. I love Rogue. I think Rogue is one of the most powerful X-Men being that she's able to do what she do, and then Logan, he's amazing. So I was really happy as a kid growing up knowing that movie was coming out, and even though the story is not like, it's like an intro, which you expect to have like an introduction into like a comic book movie. It was a good introduction, so for like nostalgia reasons and because it was actually not as bad as some of the other ones on this list, that's my next one. Last but not least, I want to talk about X-Men Days of Future Past. Now, this is my absolute favorite X-Men movie. I loved the storyline in the comics. I loved when the cartoon in the 90s did it. In this movie, we got to see the new cast with James McAvoy, Michael Fassbender, Jennifer Lawrence, and we got to see the old cast, which was Hugh Jackman, Patrick Stewart, Halle Berry, all that good shit. I was very excited when I found out this movie was coming out. I was even more excited when I found out we was getting both cast because I thought it was a nice way. The story was like a bit of a dark story, like the Sentinels come. If you don't know the storyline, the Sentinels pretty much are, trained to take out mutants, but overall they wound up taking out not only mutants, but they also taken out humans, and it gets a really dark and place where like a lot of the X-Men do die. So in the movie, instead of them having Bishop go back like it was in the comics, it is Logan who goes back because he has the regeneration cells to go back and not die and able to do all of that. And it was very interesting. One, I love Hugh Jackman, and I know he's like technically too tall to be Wolverine because he's like over 6 feet, and I think Wolverine's like 5'3" or so. And then Wolverine's like Canadian, and Hugh Jackman's Australian, so it's like all those like weird things that actors are able to do. But I loved this so much that like it's my favorite like one of all of them. It's such a good storyline. Even though, and I just watched it the other day and I was like complaining on social media because every time I watch this movie and they show the Sentinels beat up the X-Men, and I'm just like, every time I watch this knowing I'm gonna be mad when they just violate, like they just OD, and I'm just like, you gotta do them like that? You gotta do them dirty like this? Like poor Warpath, my boo, from Twilight. He's Seth Clearwater from Twilight, but he wound up being Warpath in this movie, and I freaking loved him. He was looking all fine with his hair and all the paint. I'm just like, yes, boo, yes. Sorry. Okay, so there was that, but it was just like, okay, poor Bobby Drake, Iceman, he doing his thing. He ready, he's an OG from the, the first half of these movies, and they just violated. I'm like, bro, like, you gotta do my guys dirty like this? Like the X-Men don't deserve this, and they do Halle Berry to the side. I was just like, oh, all right, guys, like, I can't. Sadness. Anyway, all of that included, even though I get upset every time I watch it, it's my favorite one. I love the storyline. I love like the nice hints of humor, but then it's also dark, and I appreciate that. And again, the cast did such a great job, especially when I had the face-to-face between Patrick Stewart and James McAvoy, and it was like both Professor X, talking to each other. I'm just like, yes! Like, it was just so dope. And I was, I have my issues with Michael Fassbender being Magneto. That's like a whole nother rant I'm going to get into. But this is my favorite movie. I thought the storyline was perfect. I thought it was good tempo throughout the movie. So, anyway, before I go, like, ranting about this again, you guys tell me in the comments, what are your favorite X-Men movies in order, or how you will rate the system of the X-Men movies. I will look at your comments, I will respond, and thank you so much for watching my video. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you guys later. Bye.